Good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, and glad to have you along with us on a nice morning here. Smoky, the Canada wildfires, the Quebec wildfire, I think is the one that's really causing the problems. Um, it was interesting yesterday, wasn't it? I mowed the lawn yesterday. I'm like, man, I'm tired. Tired for that. Probably couldn't get any oxygen. Cliff, good morning. How are you? Always a pleasure. I appreciate you joining us. Tommy, I got a question from you the other day. What was it? An email, a question? If I didn't respond, I'm sorry. I hope I did respond. Randy, good morning. Thanks for joining us here on this edition of Behind the Mic. Hey, Craig, it was really nice to fish with you and the crew. We had a lot of fun, didn't we? Corey, always a pleasure. Todd, good morning. Appreciate you joining us on this edition of Behind the Mic. Again, with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Mad Jack, a pleasure. Captain, nice to have you along with us. Jerry, thanks for joining us. Do appreciate it. If I'm not going to be on the water, I think the studio is the next best choice. Uncle Johnny, how you doing? Looking forward to playing golf Friday afternoon, Johnny. It's supposed to be hot and muggy that day, too. Eric, appreciate it. Eastern Iowa. So you got smoke there in Iowa, too, Gary? Isn't that crazy that smoke could travel that far? Oh, okay. Yeah, Tommy, we're gonna answer that question this week on the Ask Avery segment. Craig said we should. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people who catch more fish than I do. But you know what, Craig? You know where we were fishing that morning? My spot. I went out a little deeper and caught fish on spoons Monday. So I got a backup spot. I got a trip tomorrow, in fact. I got to make a point here. Bear and elk tags. Thank you for that reminder. Johnny Bowler, the Bear Whisperer, going to join me on the radio show this week. Good morning, Ed. How are you? No bear hunting for you. Corey said he didn't think it smelled like wood, smelled like plastic or chemicals. I did think it was interesting that, we see the smoke and it actually smells like smoke. You are more than welcome, Tommy. I appreciate the suggestions for the Ask Avery segment. Good morning, Bruce. When do I get my bear meat back from Michigan brand? Anytime now. Nashville, check it in. Good morning, Russ. Chad says, how fast was I running with those spoons? I was running about 2.5. 2.5 seems to be my sweet spot. I run 2.5 for cranks. I run 2.5 for spoons. I did vary the speeds. I got down to 2.3 up to 2.7, but I was right around 2.5. 2-color Chad and 3-color didn't seem to make a difference. We were also picking up fish on an offshore tadpole, bouncing it off the bottom. That's a very, very effective tactic too. Although I run the Magnum tadpoles, and there's so much weight on those, it takes a really big fish to make it thump and know you got a fish. So what we routinely do with those, we just check them every few minutes. And when the fish are hitting those spoons on the bottom, more often than not, we'll have a fish on it. You just got to reel it up to sea. Hey, we're walleye fishing, right? We're not salmon fishing. It's not for the fight. It's a meat quest on the Angler Quest. I like to take my wife salmon fishing. Any suggestions on a charter? Tell me what port, Joe. I routinely suggest Riverside Charters, Paul Schlafly out of Manistee. Good morning, Mike. Looks like you got into some good action as well. You are more than welcome, Chad. Did you see that post VersaSkins shared? Okay, help me out here, Davina. Did you see the post VersaSkins shared Conquest scents out of Davison? Any thoughts? Tell me more, Davina. I don't know what the post is. I know those two companies work very closely together. What's going on? I'm not aware of it, Davina. Please let me know more. Tim says he got his red oak bear tag. Excellent. Red oak's a hard one to get, so congrats on that, Tim. I didn't get a bear or an elk tag. I put in for points only this year, so I knew I wasn't going to get a tag. However, I should be assured a Newberry tag next year for the third season, and I will be hunting with my buddy Johnny Buller, the Bear Whisperer. Mike Sills got his first bear tag this year in Gwyn. Mike, you are going to love bear hunting. At least I think you are. Good morning, Joy. How are you? Eric also got a red oak tag. Congrats to you, Eric. Davina, I'm waiting to see what your follow-up is. Johnny Bowler is now all filled up for the season. Are these DIY hunts, Johnny, or what are they? Oh, no. You take people out. Never mind. Oh, no. Conquest Sense, Davina. They've been around for a long time. A great Michigan-based family-owned company. A lot of the ads you see with people wearing Versa skins are the Conquest Sense people. Oh, you should be excited, Mike. It's a lot of fun. Morning, Stephen. Ed thought he would get his Newberry tag with 1 point, but he didn't. What season did you put in for, Ed? Third season? If you didn't get one this year, you will get one next year, unless the DNR comes back in and drastically cuts tags for some reason. Good morning, Amy. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Behind the Mic here from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. All right, Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. I will let you know who's coming up on the show here in just a couple of minutes. I have been out on Saginaw Bay quite a bit, and I'm going to be back out there tomorrow. And then next week, third season, Ed. Okay. Well, you'll get one next year. And then next week, I start really cranking them out. Chad says VS1 scent is the real deal. Conquest Sense rock. VS1 is the calming spray or the calming. It comes in a stick like a deodorant, which means it stays out there longer. Dan, it is hump day. What's the station I'm on in Traverse City? WTCM 580 AM in Traverse City, Davina. Joel is sitting on 16 elk points. Good morning, Sam. How are you? Always a pleasure to have you check in with us. Dan, the same thing. Nice to hear from you on this edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Here to record this week's show. Shall I tell you who's coming up on the show? I'd be happy to do that. My first guest this week is Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario, Canada. If you didn't get a Michigan bear tag, Ontario is still an option. Although I just found out that Ron is now booked up for the fall season, but it's something to keep in mind. That's why I go up there, because I can't hunt bears in Michigan every year. I do go to Ontario, where I can buy a tag over the counter every year and know I'm going to be hunting. We'll talk with Ron St. Louis. Then Kevin Mist of Boning Archery, Michigan-based boning and leader in the archery industry for more than 75 years. We'll talk about that company and why I think you should consider putting some boning products on your rig for this fall. In our second hour, ladies and gentlemen, the Bear Whisperer. Johnny Bowler will be joining me to talk about bear hunting in Michigan. Oh, Mapes is with us. Josh Mapes. Always a pleasure, Josh from Overdrive Outdoors. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Also from Overdrive Outdoors, checking in Kevin Rott. Check those guys out, Overdrive Outdoors. Then Paul Rogers, not the Paul Rogers from Bad Company. The Paul Rogers, if you get that reference, you're probably kind of old. Paul Rogers from the DNR talking about the dangers of wildfires here in Michigan. Then our Ask Avery segment, brought about by Tommy, said, can you talk more about this whole bear and elk permit drawing process? Well, Lisa Jackson of the DNR will join me to answer that question. And in our third hour, we're going to talk fishing with Mark Martin. And then, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. Sam says no bear or elk for him. He has 14 points for elk. Is there no, there is. There is no maximum amount of elk points you can accumulate. It's only limited, Sam, by the number of years that you live. And by the way, I turned 65 yesterday, so I've lived quite a few years. Davina, thank you, Jonathan. We're seeing the dangers of wildfires from way over from Canada now. Yeah, those Quebec fires. My Ontario hunt almost got canceled because of wildfires near White River and Wawa. I understand the Wawa fire is still burning as well. Thank you, Davina. Appreciate that. I wasn't able to fish on my birthday because I knew it was going to blow, so I fished the day before. Eli, I didn't get one, but they screwed it up at Sporting Goods store. Had me done for hunt. Too bad. Well, thank you, Sam. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. My standard joke right about now is if I would have known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. Yeah, give me till mid-afternoon, Ed, because I'll be in the water earlier. Good morning, Dennis. Jim says he's looking forward to the interview with Johnny Bowler. He's got 11 points for bear and plan to hunt the first season next year. Johnny's a good guy. You got to watch him, though, Cap. You got to watch him because Johnny's not very good at judging distances. He had me on a bait last year. He said it's almost like 75 yards. It was 30 yards. Apparently, I need to buy Johnny a rangefinder. Other than that, he's solid. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Yeah, I went on Medicare June 1st. Haven't used it yet, but I'm paying for it. Thank you, Dan. Tim says his good friend drew any tag late season. Any tag. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like, Tim, somebody got a tag for the late season. Congrats. In the first segment of this week's radio show, I'm going to talk. Johnny says he wanted to make sure you could hit it if it ran. Elk. Okay, Tim. Good morning, Patrick. And the show this week, I'm going to talk about some of the things I've learned over the years, including such words of wisdom as don't leave fish to find fish. How many times have we done this? You're on fish. Maybe it's a little bit slow. Your buddy's 4 miles away and he's catching the snot out of him. So you pick up and run. Why would you leave fish to go find fish? That lesson took me a few years to learn. Good morning, Ruben. How are things in Colorado? William, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Robert, always a pleasure. Tonight, 7 o'clock on Wednesday Night Live, Nick Buja from the Michigan Wildlife Council will be joining me to talk about the Here for Generations campaign and why it's important to promote the role of hunters and anglers in today's society. That's tonight at 7 o'clock. Thank you, Jim. The folks at Reader did a great job. That's kind of my whole deal with them. If they come over and do your landscaping, if they come over and mow your grass, it's more time for you to be outdoors, not mowing your grass. Yeah, they did a great job, as they always do. Next week, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, if Mother Nature allows, we will do a Wednesday Night Live from Saginaw Bay, fishing with Mr. Angler Quest himself aboard his Angler Quest, Brad Dupuis. All right, Johnny, I look forward to it, buddy. And then also, Nick DeShano of Offshore Tackle is going to join us. So I will be surrounded by two heavy hitters in the outdoor world, Brad Dupuis of Angler Quest and Nick DeShano of Offshore. This is providing Mother Nature allows. Good morning, Ed. Thanks for joining us. Oh, what else? Yeah, the whole bear and elk drawing is an interesting thing. And they do it different. One of them is weighted and one of them is not. And I don't completely understand it. I don't pretend to, and I never will. But I do know this. When I used to MC the mandatory elk hunter education meeting before the hunts, before COVID, BC, before COVID, one of the things that I would do was I would ask people questions. How long have you applied for a tag? And I'd say, okay, anybody here applied for a tag for more than 30 years? And some old guys would raise their hand. And I'd work my way up. And I will tell you this, every year, without fail, somebody or more than one somebody's, I'd get to, okay, anybody here, was this your first year applying for an elk tag? And invariably, hands would go up. More than one. First year, 6 minutes. And then I would find out, okay, just for the heck of it, you don't happen to have a bull tag, do you? And every year, somebody would say yes. Every year in the hunts that I was involved in, somebody would walk in that door with a bull tag in their pocket the first year they applied. Go figure. And then you got guys out there, old guys who can barely get around anymore, applying for what, 35 years? How many years has the drawing been around? And finally got their cow tag. Smokey down in Olivet. Good morning, Craig. How are you? It is the luck of the draw, but the whole weighted system, Sam says makes no sense to him either. Yeah, it's I don't understand the weighted system. Now, the bear drawing, I think it's the elk drawing that is weighted and the bear drawing is not. And I've had the folks from the DNR explain this to me multiple times, and I still don't get it. So it's one of those things I'm just going to agree or accept the fact that I'm never going to understand it and move on. I will never get an elk tag. I know that, but I will put in for one every year, except for this year, what I put in for points. To me, your best chance of getting a Michigan elk tag is the pure Michigan hunt. And I think I will win the pure Michigan hunt at some point in my life. I think I will, because they draw multiple winners. They draw 3 a year. I got to move something here because I'm going to have to change my broadcast microphone. People say, why do you have 2 mics in front of you? Yeah, it'll make you lose your hair. There's no doubt about that. Brent, continue to think about you guys. Continue to pray for you guys. It was great fishing with you too, by the way. Tell Tracy I said hi. I don't disagree, Sam, but, you know, people say, why do you have 2 microphones? This one, which you can hear, is my social media microphone. This one, which you don't hear, is my broadcast mic. So I run 2 different mics. But as a result, I need to get them a little bit closer. So I need to move there we go, my laptop in front of me. 20 years drew a cow tag this year. Brett, congrats on that. Good job. A lot of venison in an elk. People say, well, that's not an elk, or that's not venison, that's an elk. No. Deer, whitetails, muleys, moose, and elk, and I don't know about antelope, all are made up of venison. Tracy says, hi, Tracy. Chris, look into elk hunting in Colorado. The tag is $800. Been hunting public land, no guide for 20 years, and our group is 4, been skunk 2 years. That's pretty cool. But Chris, I would suspect you guys are pretty hardcore hunters. That's not a hunt for the casual elk hunter, I would bet. Hey, Sherry, good morning. How are you? That's the thing about the Michigan hunt. It's not a hard hunt unless you want it to be. Most Michigan elk hunters drive, and this is not a disparaging comment. It's not meant to be. It's just the fact of the hunt. Most Michigan elk hunters go with a guide, and I would too, and they drive around the 2 tracks of the Pigeon River or the surrounding countryside until they find a herd of elk, and then they get out and they shoot it. And again, that's just the way it is. A lot of the hunters are older, and that suits them very well. How long now, Jonathan?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So I better get a timer out here. Let's see. That one I can delete because that is not valid. This one I can delete because it's not valid, but I need to add one. 657, 13. I do 4 segments in the radio show. The first one is 12 minutes. The second one is 13 minutes. Then the third one is 7 minutes. And the fourth one is 6 minutes and 50 seconds. Didn't know this, Jim. Jim says it's a shame to hear about the moose starving on Isle Royal. Didn't know anything about it, Cap. First I've heard. Eli says Wyoming is another state that is great for over-the-counter elk tags. Eli says, and not a bad price either. No, I've paid $600, I think, for whitetail tags in Kansas. So $800 for an elk tag is not bad. It's a lot of money, but it's not bad. But that's interesting, Jim. It's interesting. Sam's gonna make it a tough hunt. He's gonna do a spot and stalk with his bow. Exactly. See, you can make it what you want, right? That's the case with just about any outdoor adventure. You can make it what you want it to be. All right, in about 45 seconds or so, I'm going to have to switch my focus here. And I will not be talking to you directly. You'll still be able to see me and you'll be able to hear me, but I won't be able to answer your questions or have a conversation as we have been, because I'll be switching my focus over to the radio show. I will put on my official broadcast headphones and speak into my broadcast microphone in addition to my social media microphone. So even if you talk to me, even if you ask me a question, I'm not going to be able to answer. I'm not going to be able to respond. I would encourage you tonight, my friends, to join me 7 o'clock for another edition of Behind the Mic. This time around, Nick Bougie of the Michigan Wildlife Council on what I think is a very, very interesting 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, ignition, blast off, boom. Bring it up, John, so people can hear it if you would hear in the studio. There we go. Thank you. You know that music, don't you? I hear this in my sleep. I wonder how many of these shows I've done. Got to be in the thousands. Got to be. All right, I'm also in the show. I'm going to reference the fact that it's now July, even though it's not. But this is for the show this weekend, so I haven't lost my marbles yet. 7 o'clock tonight, Wednesday Night Live, the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, my email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Have a good day, my friends. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and so glad to have you along with us as we are now in the month of July. How did that happen? How is it basically the 4th of July weekend? Time does indeed fly, doesn't it? And I feel like the older I get, the faster it flies. So it's now July. You could look at it, if you wanted to, that we are kind of unofficially at the halfway point of summer. We're not, but a lot of people look at it that way. So what does that make you think? Tell you what it makes me think, that if you have things on your list for this summertime season that you have not done yet, don't keep putting them off. How often do we do this? We being you and me. We have this list of things we want to do. And we usually come up with it about January, February, March. This summer I'm going to do this. This summer I'm going to go here. This summer we're going to do, you got this wish list, right? But then you get busy. You get busy with kids stuff. You get busy with grandkid stuff. You get busy with graduations, with weddings, as in my case. And time starts to slip by. And then before you know it, the summertime's gone. Summer's gone. And you think, oh, we never did that. And about December, you're going to really wish you would have done that. So if you've got things that you've been planning on doing, places you've been planning on going, please don't drag your feet. Make those memories. This is the time, no matter where you are in your life, this is the time to make memories, whether it's with your kids or your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews. Do the things that when they become adults or when they get old, they'll remember. And in my opinion, there is no better place to make memories than in the outdoors, hunting or fishing. Speaking of hunting, if you're listening in Michigan, and if you're listening on the broadcast version of the show, you indeed are in Michigan. Did you get your bear tag? Did you get your elk tag? Well, I'm pretty sure you didn't get your elk tag. Some people did, but most people didn't. And a few people got their bear tag. If you've got either one, congrats. Coming up at the end of our second hour, we're going to talk with Lisa Jackson from the DNR about this whole drawing process. Because every year when the bear and elk tags are announced, people say, how does this work? I've been applying for an elk tag for 30 years and I still don't have one. How does this work? Yet I see people who applied first year and they get a bull tag. And believe me, that does happen. I've seen it happen myself when I used to MC or host the elk hunter education classes. I saw it every year. It happens. Kind of crazy, huh? I have been fishing. I've been out on Saginaw Bay on the angler quest chasing walleye and just having a riot. I love that skinny water. People say, well, Avery, you talk about skinny water. What is it? What do you want it to be? To me, skinny water's like 10 feet or less, maybe 12 feet or less. Someplace where I can run my crankbaits, either flicker shads or flicker minnows for the most part, sometimes good old-fashioned Hottentots. I can run them on short leads. It's easy fishing. And in the shallow water, when the fish are in there, they're in there because they're feeding, so they're aggressive. What I tell my crews when I leave in the morning, I said, we're going to make a pass through the skinny water and see. And we'll know right away if there are fish in there because we'll start getting bit right away. So that's where I've been spending most of my time and doing, pretty good, catching some nice fish. But I need to have backup spots, right? Because if I take a bunch of people through my skinny water some morning and there's nothing in there, okay, I got to find fish for these people. So I went out the other day on kind of an exploration expedition adventure, looking for fish a little bit out a little bit deeper, and we found them. Found them running spoons on lead core. That's an interesting program. It can be very, very effective. We caught a quick 2-man limit and more the other day, running 2-color lead, 3-color lead. I couldn't get anything to bite on a jet diver, but we did bounce offshore tackle tadpoles off the bottom and took fish as well. So it's nice to have that kind of in my back pocket, right? What else is going on? Oh, I celebrated a birthday this past week since we've last talked. It pains me to say this, but I turned 65 years old. If I'd have known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. No, it's good. It's good that I'm still here. It's been a great ride. There are some things that I have learned along the way. I don't pretend to be overly smart. I don't pretend to be wise at all, but just by being here for 65 years, there are some things that I've learned that I want to share with you for what they're worth, right? The advice, the information, the thoughts are worth what you paid for them, and you're not paying anything. So keep that in mind. Some things I've learned. Don't leave fish to find fish. That seems so simple, but how many times have we done that before? How many times have I done that? You're getting fish, it kind of slows down, but there's still fish there. You're marking fish. You're still picking a few up. And your buddy says, oh, I'm on a hot bite, and he's 5 miles away. You pick up everything and run over there, and by then the bite's dead. Don't leave fish to find fish. If you're on fish, don't leave them. Don't cancel a hunting or fishing trip based on a forecast. Now, I'm talking about a forecast 2 or 3 days out. Yes, if you wake up in the morning and it's blowing and there's forecasts for thunderstorms, yeah, at that point you're safe to cancel it. But don't cancel 2 or 3 days ahead of time based on a forecast because things can change. Enjoy the experience. Don't concentrate on the harvest. The harvest is a bonus. If you catch fish, if you harvest a critter, that's a bonus. But the experience of just getting out there is the thrill. Don't let yourself get so caught up in the fact you got to kill something or catch something to have a good day, because that's not the case. Enjoy the experience. Don't get hung up on technology. I'm talking to myself here because I'm a tech geek. My granddad, I remember, listen, if I want to know what the weather's going to be, I pull up my phone and I look at the radar. My granddad, if he wanted to know what the weather was going to be, he'd walk out on the porch in the morning and he'd look around and he'd feel the humidity and he'd feel the wind and he'd feel the temperature and he knew what the weather was going to be. Don't get hung up on technology. It's a wonderful tool that can help us better enjoy our outdoor adventures, but don't rely on it. pass down your knowledge. For the first time in my life, I can see a scenario where our hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping lifestyle is truly in jeopardy. Now, if you're listening in the UP, you might say, Avery, you're crazy. And okay, if you live downstate, you can see it. You know what I'm talking about. No matter what point you are in your life, you have learned some things about the outdoors. Please pass that, share that knowledge, pass it down, pass it to the next generation. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I find myself doing this. Somebody will be talking to me about something and they'll bring up something and I'm like, I didn't fully understand that. Well, don't hesitate to stop and say, hey, what did you mean by that? When you said you were doing this in these conditions, what does that mean? Always ask questions because we can always be learning. You're never going to learn everything. In my case, I'm never going to be an expert at anything. But if I keep asking questions, I'm going to get better. Stand up for what you believe in. And this goes beyond just hunting and fishing too, but in life. If you have strong beliefs, and I hope you do, stand up for it. Let people know where you are. Let people know what you stand for. Let people know what you believe. And don't worry about the negative stuff. Because when you stand up for what you believe, people are going to come at you. If you put yourself like me, I'm fairly high profile. People can find me whenever they want, post online. I get my fair share of negative stuff. Just let it go. Just let it run off your back. As long as you are standing up for what you believe, it'll be all right. My last bit of advice after 65 years, again, don't let the experiences pass you by. Get out there, get on the water, get in the woods, share your adventures, share your experiences, share your knowledge. And that's basically all I've learned in 65 years. We'll take a break here at the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters in White River, Ontario, Canada. If you didn't get a Michigan bear tag, you can always go to Canada. Then Kevin Mist from Boning Archery wraps up this first hour right here on Outdoor Magazine. So glad you're along with us. Appreciate your time. Hey, Mark, how are you? Why don't I bleed my walleye? How do you know I don't bleed them, Scott? You know the biggest reason I don't bleed my walleye, Scott? I never clean fish. I give them all away. So I don't care how messy it is when people clean them because I don't clean them. All right, my friends, I got to go. I got to record the rest of the radio show. I hope you can join me tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. I'll be back in my home office. I'll be talking with Nick Bougie of the Michigan Wildlife Council about their Here for Generations campaign and more. In the meantime, have a great day, and hopefully we'll talk to you tonight.